So I want to start here today. The trial of former President Donald J. Trump is an ominous warning that we are all future defendants. We are all potential future defendants, not hyperbole, and no, it's not an over-exaggeration. It is, unfortunately, the state of affairs in 2024. The rule of law, the Constitution, the foundational principles of this country have all been tossed out in the political bloodlust to tear down one ideology and to install another one by itself and forever, one-party rule. And believe me, if they can do this to a billionaire former president, what chance will you ever have when the government comes calling for you? As I've been talking about lately, one of the dark omens of the horizon can be found north of our border in Canada. North of our border in Canada. Under the iron-fisted rule of Justin Trudeau, pastors were jailed during the pandemic for holding Sunday services. Truckers ripped from their rigs for protesting the vile assaults on liberty across that nation. Many remain jailed today. Their bank accounts frozen, their freedom eliminated, and their futures stolen because they had the gall to disagree with the government's radical anti-freedom agenda. In this country, that is exactly what the prosecution of Donald Trump represents, a complete and intentional departure from the rule of law to the mob rules. And the mob doesn't care how it gets what it wants as long as it gets what it wants, and they want power. They've demonstrated what they are willing to do, which is anything. They will pack up pallets of documents and ship them to the former president's Mar-a-Lago home and then raid the home as if he's a common criminal to search those very boxes of documents shipped there by government agents and then proclaim that he has violated the National Archives rules and worse, so much worse than that, he has piles of classified documents in his possession. And they claim that having those documents that he was fully entitled to as a president is now illegal. And they hammer him with dozens of felonies. It's really quite unbelievable. They will dredge up some crazy old windbag from New York City and claim that she has been defamed, when Donald Trump says not only did he not assault her in any way, especially sexually, but that her claims prove she's nuts. And then they nail him for defaming her for calling her nuts. I mean, under these rules, you're not allowed to call a liar, even if they are. In yet another case, they will ignore the statute of limitations and cobble together a case that suggests paying someone not to spread an ugly rumor about you is now a crime. But they can't say exactly what the crime is. And then they'll parade an over-the-hill porn star out just for the spectacle of it all, to taint the jury. And when they call the former Trump lawyer to have him smear the man in court too, they do all of it. And all the while, that former lawyer is doing everything he can to cash in on his fleeting fame. And during this entire time, the president, Donald Trump, is barred from speaking at all. He can't talk about any of them. They can all talk about him. He can say nothing at all. And if he does, they threaten to toss him in jail if he violates the violation of free speech he's dealing with every day. This is why on CNN, the far-left commentator and Joe Biden supporter Fareed Zakaria says the only reason Donald Trump is being prosecuted in New York is because his name is Donald Trump. This is worth hearing again.
Republicans seem to be uniting behind Trump. Whatever opposition he faced in the primaries has largely melted away. And the trials against him keep him in the spotlight, infuriate his base, who sees him as a martyr, and even may serve to make him the object of some sympathy among people in general who believe that his prosecutors are politically motivated. This happens to be true, in my opinion. I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump. A majority of Americans are skeptical that Trump will be able to get a fair trial, according to a CNN poll. And I haven't even mentioned Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West and Jill Stein, all of whom would probably take votes away from Biden.
They'll do whatever it takes. If your last name was not Trump, if your name was not Donald Trump, you would not be facing any charges. So says Fareed Zakaria of CNN. You see, what can't be prosecuted criminally will be pursued civilly, and vice versa. Where both can be pursued, both will be pursued. It's time for insurers to sell criminal and civil defense policies to conservatives, all of us. But the whole charade is failing, at least when it comes to the voters of America, at least the ones that bother to pay attention. Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, considered a contender now for the VP pick, says the trial is turning voters off, and they're embracing Donald Trump. Boy, is he right. Here he is.
And, of course, we know that from the polls that have come out, even from the New York Times, Rasmussen Interactive this week, President Trump is leading all over the country. And the conclusion you could draw from that is the American people have already acquitted Donald Trump because the things that they're concerned about, inflation, crime, the border, the economy, all of these things, President Trump is leading by huge double digits versus Joe Biden. And the sooner that this scam trial can be concluded, the sooner that the president can get back to getting out, campaigning, and talking to the American people about the issues that matter to them.
And there are issues that matter to them. Have you heard the inflation numbers? Still 3.5%. 20% over the time that Joe Biden's been in office, 30% for food, 50% for gasoline. That's how much it's gone up. And for Donald Trump, the parade of high-profile defenders is getting longer, by the way. They're appearing in person in the courtroom to see what the circus looks like up front. They're not impressed. Vivek Ramaswamy among those asking what the actual crime is here and who committed it. I've got some answers for you, but here he is.
Who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours, of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial. You had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican operative. What would you all be saying?
In fact, another guy who has been tattered by his own party recently stopped by for some redemption and to defend the man who has come to his defense in recent weeks, too. You got it. It's the speaker. Here he is.
President Trump is a friend, and I wanted to be here to support him. I'm here speaking with you outside because the court won't allow us to speak inside the building. That's just one of the many things that are wrong here. This is the fifth week that President Trump has been in court for this sham of a trial. They are doing this intentionally to keep him here and keep him off of the campaign trail. And I think everybody in the country can see that for what it is. I'm an attorney. I'm a former litigator myself. I am disgusted by what is happening here, what is being done here to our entire system of justice overall. The people are losing faith right now in this country, in our institutions. They're losing faith in our system of justice. And the reason for that is because they see it being abused as it is being done here in New York. The facts here are very important. Facts are always important in a trial, or at least they're supposed to be. The president's actions in this matter were previously reviewed and no charges were filed. Why is that? Because there's no crime here. Now, 8 years later, suddenly they've resurrected this thing. They brought it back. And why is that? Well, just apply common sense. Everyone can see. It's painfully obvious that we're now 6 months out from an election day. And that's the reason.
That is the only reason. Meanwhile, the leftist media tried its best to prop up the star witness in this crazy show trial, but even those on the far left have a lot of problems trying to convince themselves this is a good look for the prosecution or for their alleged star witness. Here's an example.
Have you regularly commented on your podcast that you want President Trump to be convicted in this case? Cohen says, yes, probably. Yes, probably. He said it 500,000 times. I mean, it's all he says. So if I was Michael Cohen's lawyer and the DA's team, I'd want him to just be more forthcoming. Do you have any doubt? You said in your podcast you want Trump to be convicted in this case. Blanche asks. No, Cohen responds. Okay, that's a better answer. Of course he does, no doubt. But again, this isn't about who's right or wrong as between Trump or Cohen, who's good or bad, or who's more good or more bad. It's about the fact that the witness despises the defendant, wants him to be convicted, wants him to go to prison. Michael Cohen gave them that ammo. Now they're using it.
Well, I think they're saying he's an obsessive about Donald Trump, and he obsesses about getting him convicted every opportunity.
Point that Todd Blanche, the Trump lawyer, just asked, do you want to see President Trump convicted in this case? Cohen's reply, sure.
Right, and he says that on every podcast and every moment that he can, and he is a man obsessed with retribution for Donald
And then
Trump.
the jury.
Obsessed. Cyber stalker in general. A guy who's also trying to cash in on this deal. So there you are. The former president is on trial, and the way things are going, you could find yourself getting treated that way someday too. Unless we can bring this out of control situation back into the realm of the rule of law, of course. Meanwhile, doing what he can to connect with American voters while being handcuffed by an obviously corrupt system that keeps him off the campaign trail. Former president took shots at the man whose agents are behind all of this lawfare, the man who he plans to replace in January, because Joe Biden has been a disaster for the economy and everything else. Here's Donald Trump.
Electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them. He wants to put a big tariff on China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago. But they've also got to do it on other vehicles, and they have to do it on a lot of other products, because China's eating our lunch right now. And they went away from what I was doing. They're eating our lunch, so they have to do it on much more than electric vehicles, and they have to get going fast, but it should have been done 3.5 years ago. I did it. I started. And then they started playing games, and it was very bad for the auto industry.
So again, right now, all of these games from the left are benefiting Donald Trump. He's still able to campaign, however that looks. And the honest people in the country know more than anyone else that they trust Donald Trump to fight for them. It seems to be getting stronger and stronger that way. That's why the Biden team has come out and agreed to do a debate, because Donald Trump continues to win more every day. Let's hope it stays that way for the benefit of this country.